Hi, everybody. This is Mrs. Pearson, your elementary ELL teacher. Today, you're going to write a retell of the story, The Signmaker's Assistant. And this is from Second Grade Journeys, Lesson 19. So, The Signmaker's Assistant is fiction. Fiction books are made up stories. Fiction is not real. It has illustrations. It is pretend. It also has characters and a setting. The genre or type of literature of the Signmaker's Assistant is humorous fiction. What is humorous fiction? Humorous fiction is a story with funny characters or comical events to make the reader laugh. So for this lesson, you will need a piece of paper and a pencil, because at the end of our review, you're going to challenge yourself and you're going to answer this question. What happens in the story? Write a retell. And we're going to use our colors, green, yellow, red. So at the start or the beginning of the story, first, you're going to say what happened first. And then we're going to move to the middle. We're going to slow down. And you're going to say then and next. And then we're going to talk about the end or the finish. And we are going to use words like last. So here's our learning target. I can write a retell of the story, The Signmaker's Assistant, using complete sentences. Success criteria. That means how will you know you're successful at writing a retell of the story? Well, here are our steps to success. I will, number one, say and match the characters and setting. 2, I will say and match the lesson or moral of the story, what the characters learned. I will put the retelling pictures in the correct sequence or order. I will, number 4, say, match, and write the sentences to each picture, saying what happened first, later, next, and last. And then finally, you're going to check your writing using my writing checklist. So characters, what are characters? Characters are the people, animals, or objects in a story. Setting, what is a setting? The setting is where the story takes place. Sequence, what is the sequence? Sequence is the order things happen in a story. So you're going to say and write these words first, next, last, or what happened in the beginning, the middle, and the end. So let's retell the story before we write it. We're going to retell The Signmaker's Assistant. The characters are, who are the characters in The Signmaker's Assistant? The characters are, well, the characters are Norman, the sign maker, and the townspeople. The setting, where does the story take place? The setting is the setting is the town. So let's put our pictures in the correct sequence or order. First, then, next, last. So first, what did Norman notice? First, Norman noticed well, everyone agreed that the sign maker was the best. In fact, his assistant, or Norman, noticed that everyone followed what his sign said. So Norman noticed that everyone followed what the sign maker's signs said. Then what did Norman decide to do? Then Well, Norman decided to paint new signs with funny messages. The townspeople were polite and did what the signs said. Next, what did the townspeople begin to do? The townspeople began, well, the trouble started when the townspeople began tearing down the signs. Later, they chased the sign maker out of town. Last, what did Norman do last? Norman replaced, well, Norman cleared the garbage and replaced the signs. He also apologized to the sign maker and townspeople. So in the end, Norman learned to not, what did Norman learn? He learned to not trick. Don't trick people. Don't trick the people in the town. And the townspeople learned to blank first. What did they learn to do first? They learned to think first before just doing what the signs said, right? All right, so now we've reviewed. It's the end of our review. It's time to challenge yourself. We need your paper and pencil because you're going to answer what happens in the story. Write a retell. So first, then, next, and last. All right, so just a reminder, say each sentence out loud before you write it. And here's our writing checklist. When you're writing, make sure you have finger spaces between each of your words. Make sure you use punctuation, periods, commas, exclamation marks. Make sure you use uppercase letters or capital letters at the beginning of each of your sentences. Make sure you sound out your unknown words that you don't know how to spell already. And then my favorite, reread each of my sentences. Go back and reread each of your sentences to make sure they make sense and that you didn't leave out a word or that you didn't write too many words. All right. What happens in the story? Write a retell. So let's start at the beginning or the start of the story. You're going to write this. First, Norman noticed that. So say your sentence. First, Norman noticed that. So once you've said your sentence, first, Norman noticed that. Then I want you to push pause and I want you to write your complete green sentence. When you're finished, push play. Now we're moving to the middle of the story. Then Norman decided to, what did Norman decide to do? Say your sentence out loud. Then Norman decided to, once you've said your sentence out loud, push pause and write your complete yellow sentence. And when you're finished writing your complete sentence, push play. We're still in the middle of the story. Next, the townspeople began, what did they begin doing? So next, the townspeople began, so say your complete sentence and then push pause and write it. Next, the townspeople began, and finally, let's go to the end of the story or the finish. Last, Norman replaced the, what did Norman replace? Next or last, Norman replaced the, so say your sentence out loud. Last, Norman replaced the, then push pause and write your last read sentence. And when you're finished, push play. All right, it's time to check your writing. Don't forget, look at each of your sentences. Make sure you have everything from your writing checklist. Did you use finger spaces between each of your words? Did you put a period at the end of each of your sentences? Did you use uppercase letters or capital letters at the beginning of each of your sentences or for names? And when you wrote a word you didn't know how to write, how to spell, did you sound out the words and write the sounds you hear? And then my favorite, I want you to go back and reread each of your 4 sentences, making sure that they make sense. So if you need to, you can push pause and read your 4 sentences and make sure you have these things off your writing checklist. So let's rate our learning. How do you think you did? Here's our learning target. I can write a retell of the story, The Signmaker's Assistant, using complete sentences. How do you think you did? Would you give yourself a 4? I could teach this lesson. I wrote 4 complete sentences and I used my writing checklist. If so, put a 4 at the top of your paper. Or would you give yourself a 3? I could help others with this sentence with this. I wrote 3 to 4 complete sentences and I use my writing checklist most of the time. If so, give yourself a 3 at the top. Or would you give yourself a 2? I needed some help with this. I wrote 2 complete sentences. I sometimes use the writing checklist. Or would you give yourself a 1? I needed a lot of help with this. I wrote 1 sentence and I did not use my writing checklist. So think back and reflect on your learning. How do you think you did? 4, 3, 2, or 1. And now you can check your writing with my writing. What happens in the story? Write a retell. First, Norman noticed that everyone followed what the sign maker's signs said. So first, Norman noticed that everyone followed what the sign maker's signs said. Then Norman decided to paint his own signs with funny messages. Everyone did what they said. Next, the townspeople began, what did they begin doing? The townspeople began tearing down the signs. Later, they chased the sign maker out of town. And finally, last, what happened at the end of the story? Last, Norman replaced the signs and apologized to the sign maker and townspeople. So thank you, boys and girls, for writing with me. I hope you had a great time. I know I did. Have a great day.